On the evening of November 8, 1939, Munich was cold. Not just from the air, but from fear. Thousands of people gathered inside a large beer hall. They laughed, they drank, they waited. They did not know that death was already inside the building. Every year on this exact date, one man stood on the same stage and told the same story. A story about power, about destiny, about a nation chosen to rise, and others chosen to fall. His name was Adolf Hitler, and that night, history came closer to ending him than ever before. But this is not his story. This is the story of time, of minutes, of silence, and of one man history almost forgot. 13 minutes. That is all it took, not to change history, but to preserve it exactly as it was. Because 13 minutes earlier, Adolf Hitler left the building. No one noticed. No one questioned it. No one understood what had just happened. The speech ended sooner than planned. The applause came early. The motorcade started moving. And history kept going, as if nothing had been waiting behind the walls. But behind the wooden columns, inside the stone pillar behind the stage, a mechanism was already counting down. Tick, tick, tick. At exactly 9:20 p.m., the beer hall exploded. The blast tore through the hall. The ceiling collapsed. Tables shattered. Walls shook. 8 people died instantly. More than 60 were wounded. But the man who was meant to die was already gone. The explosion was not a failure. It happened exactly as planned. The bomb worked perfectly. The timing was precise. Only one thing was wrong: time itself. If Adolf Hitler had stayed 13 minutes longer, World War II might have ended before it truly began. The Holocaust might never have happened. But history does not reward almost. Sometimes, history is not shaped by armies, or speeches, or flags. Sometimes, history is shaped by minutes. 13 minutes. Europe did not fall into war suddenly. It slid into it, day by day, decision by decision. By the late 1930s, the continent was exhausted. One generation had already been destroyed in the trenches of the First World War. Another felt it coming again. People remembered hunger. They remembered inflation so brutal that money lost value between morning and evening. They remembered humiliation, borders redrawn by strangers, promises broken by treaties. Germany especially was a nation wounded, and wounds do not heal quietly. Fear became a background noise. Not loud enough to cause panic, but constant enough to shape every thought. People wanted stability, order, someone to tell them that everything would be all right. When Adolf Hitler came to power, many did not see a monster. They saw a solution. Factories reopened. Unemployment dropped. The streets felt safer. For ordinary people, these things mattered more than ideology. The speeches were loud. The flags were everywhere. The rituals were overwhelming. But most people were not thinking about war. They were thinking about food, rent, their children. Evil rarely announces itself clearly. It arrives disguised as normality. The regime did not need everyone to believe. It only needed most people to remain silent. By 1938, Germany had become a place where silence was safer than speech. Neighbors watched neighbors. Co-workers listened carefully. Friends avoided certain topics. Not because they were ordered to, but because they understood the rules without them being spoken. The secret police did not need to arrest everyone. They only needed to arrest a few. Fear would do the rest. And yet, life went on. People married. They worked. They gathered in beer halls. The illusion of normality was carefully maintained. By 1939, few believed peace would last. Austria had been absorbed, Czechoslovakia dismantled. Each victory made the next one inevitable. Parents looked at their sons and said nothing. Veterans avoided eye contact with recruitment posters. Shopkeepers listened to the radio with uneasy expressions. Some felt excitement, others felt dread, but almost everyone felt that history was accelerating. Most people adapted. A few resisted quietly, and one man observed. He listened carefully to the speeches. He watched how crowds reacted. He noticed what others ignored. He did not see glory. He did not see destiny. He saw a future filled with graves. While millions hoped someone else would stop it, he began to understand that no one would. And in a world standing on the edge, that realization was the most dangerous thing of all. He was born into a world that did not expect greatness from him. No banners, no speeches, no sense of destiny. Georg Elser was born in 1903 in a small village in southern Germany, a place where life moved slowly and change arrived quietly. His family was poor. Work came early. Responsibility came early. Dreams, if they existed at all, were practical ones. He learned to shape wood before he learned to shape words, to measure twice, to cut once. Patience was not a virtue for him. It was survival. Elser was not charismatic. He did not lead groups. He did not seek attention. In a time obsessed with mass movements, he remained solitary. He joined no political party, not out of apathy, but out of distrust. He believed parties demanded obedience before they demanded truth. He listened more than he spoke, and when he spoke, he chose his words carefully. People remembered him as polite, quiet, and easy to overlook. As a carpenter, Elser moved from town to town. Work took him wherever there was demand. He lived lightly. Few possessions, few attachments. Music was one of the few things that broke his silence. He played the zither, in taverns, at small gatherings, never on grand stages. He did not drink much. He did not gamble. He watched others do both. When the Nazis came to power, Elser paid attention. Not to the spectacle, but to the consequences. He noticed wages falling despite the speeches. He noticed longer work days. He noticed fear entering conversations. He listened to Hitler's speeches on the radio, not with admiration, but with calculation. He believed the words were not meant to inspire. They were meant to prepare. Prepare people for sacrifice. Prepare them for war. Unlike many, Elser did not blame minorities for Germany's suffering. He blamed power, unchecked and glorified. He saw neighbors disappear, not suddenly, but gradually. First they were spoken about, then they were avoided, then they were gone. For Elser, this was the moment something hardened. A line was drawn, and once crossed, it could not be ignored. History often waits for men who want to be noticed. Elser was not one of them. He did not dream of recognition. He did not imagine monuments. He imagined consequences. While others asked whether Hitler could be stopped, Elser asked something else. What would happen if no one tried? In a world trained to obey, the most dangerous thing was not rebellion. It was clarity. There is a difference between fear and understanding. Fear makes people freeze. Understanding forces them to choose. By the late 1930s, Georg Elser understood what was coming. Not as a theory, not as politics, but as inevitability. He saw war not as glory, but as arithmetic. Millions mobilized, millions sent forward, millions not coming back. Once you see numbers like that, sleep becomes difficult. Elser was not alone in his doubts. Many sensed that something was wrong, but sensing is not acting. Some believed the regime would stabilize. Others hoped someone more powerful would intervene. Most chose the simplest option. They waited. Waiting feels safe. It carries no immediate cost, until suddenly, it carries all of them. Elser asked himself a question that terrified him. If everyone waits, who stops it? He did not believe in fate. He believed in cause and effect. If Hitler remained alive, war would come. If war came, millions would die. This was not ideology. It was logic. Elser did not look for allies. Not because he was proud, but because he was careful. Groups create noise. Noise attracts attention. Attention brings failure. More importantly, he did not want anyone else to die because of his choice. If this failed, the consequences would be his alone. Planning an assassination is not heroic. It is lonely. It requires imagining death over and over again. Elser did not hate Hitler as a person. He hated what Hitler represented, a future built on obedience, violence, and silence. To act, he had to accept something unbearable, that he might become the very thing the regime would call him, a murderer. There is a moment in ever when thought becomes action. For Elser, that moment came quietly. No speech, no "oh," just a conclusion. If he did nothing, he would be complicit. If he acted, he would stand. He chose to stand alone. A decision alone changes nothing. Only preparation gives it weight. Once Elser crossed the line, there was no room left for emotion. Every feeling had to be translated into steps. He did not ask if it could be done. He asked how. Elser knew that power thrives on routine. And Adolf Hitler was no exception. Every year on November 8th, Hitler returned to the same place, the Burgerbraukeller, a beer hall in Munich. Large, familiar, symbolic. It was where the Nazi movement had once been born, and every year, Hitler stood beneath the same ceiling and spoke for hours. For Elser, this was not coincidence. It was opportunity. The hall was public, crowded, accessible, and predictable. Hitler always stood at the same podium. Behind him, a thick stone pillar supported the balcony above. Stone, solid, permanent. If the pillar failed, everything above it would follow. Elser understood that there would be no second attempt. The bomb had to work, the timing had to be exact, and no one could know. He began to calculate. Distance, pressure, blast radius. Not on paper, in his head. Elser had no access to laboratories. No military supplies. No engineers. What he had were tools. Explosives stolen piece by piece from quarries. Detonators assembled in secrecy. A timer designed to function without electricity. It was not elegant. It was reliable. The most dangerous part was not the bomb. It was time. Hitler's speeches were unpredictable. Sometimes 2 hours, sometimes 3, sometimes longer. The device had to wait, patient, silent. Once armed, it could not be stopped. By day, Elser was invisible. A worker, a musician, a man passing through. By night, he was designing the end of a regime. There were no rehearsals, no margins for doubt, only one chance, balanced on patience, precision, and silence. Every night after the beer hall closes, darkness returns to the Bürgerbraukeller. Chairs are stacked, lights are turned off. The building sleeps. Almost. Hidden inside, Georg Elser remains. For weeks he has memorized the routine, the closing time, the guard's footsteps, the sound of keys turning in locks. He hides in a storage room, motionless, sometimes for hours, breathing slowly, listening. Only when silence is complete does he begin to move. Using simple tools, Elser starts carving into the stone pillar behind the speaker's podium. Chip by chip, night after night. He works in total darkness, guided only by touch. Dust fills his lungs, sweat freezes on his skin. There is no applause, no witness, only the sound of history being hollowed out from the inside. The danger is constant. At any moment, a guard could return, a door could open, a light could switch on. More than once, footsteps echo in the hall. Elser freezes, heart racing, tools pressed against stone. He holds his breath as shadows move past his hiding place. Once a guard pauses only meters away. A cigarette is lit. Smoke drifts through the hall. Seconds stretch into minutes. Then the footsteps fade. Elser survives another night. Each close call reinforces the truth. If he is discovered, there will be no arrest, only a bullet. And still he returns the next night, because backing out now would mean failure, and failure to him is not an option. Time becomes his enemy. November approaches. Elser knows the date by heart, November 8th. He calculates everything, the depth of the cavity, the strength of the blast, the timing of the mechanism. The bomb must explode while Hitler is speaking, not before, not after. He builds the device himself, no blueprints, no testing. 2 clockwork timers, redundancy, precision. Every second matters. As the final night approaches, Elser seals the cavity. He smooths the surface, cleans the dust. When the beer hall opens again, nothing looks different. The pillar stands quietly, but inside, a clock has begun to count down. Tick, tick, tick. In just days, this silence will explode. Munich, the Bürgerbraukeller Beer Hall, November 8, 1939. Outside, Germany is already at war. Poland has fallen. Europe is holding its breath. Inside the hall, everything looks familiar. Banners, swastikas, rows of loyal party members. This night is tradition. Every year, Adolf Hitler returns here to commemorate the failed beer hall putsch of 1923. For 16 years, this speech has never been missed, never delayed, never shortened. At exactly 8 p.m., Hitler enters the hall. Applause erupts. He walks to the podium, unaware that death is already waiting inside the walls. Hitler begins to speak. His voice is sharp, confident, predictable. But something is different tonight. Outside, a thick fog has settled over Munich. Hitler plans to return to Berlin by train. Flying is impossible. The schedule tightens. His adjutants whisper, time is limited. At 9:07 p.m., Hitler does something no one expects. He ends his speech early. 13 minutes early. He leaves the podium, shakes a few hands, turns toward the exit. No one notices the significance. No one realizes that history has just shifted by 13 minutes. At 9:20 p.m., the beer hall is still full. Laughter, clinking glasses, conversations echo beneath the ceiling. Then, a thunderous blast. The pillar behind the podium explodes outward. The ceiling collapses, wood splinters, glass rains down. Smoke fills the hall, screams replace music. 8 people are killed instantly, more than 60 are wounded. The podium, where Hitler stood minutes earlier, is completely destroyed. 13 minutes.